One of the things I find as I go around in the Western world is that there's a lot of people who believe that they know what Christianity is, but when I talk to them, what they have to say about it and what I would say about it are totally different things. Totally different. Hang on, let me just turn this light on. I wanted to take one video out of my channel and just properly explain what Christianity at least means from my perspective. And I can biblically substantiate my point of view using Bible verses. Although they're probably verses you will have heard a million times as a viewer, but the main thing that I would say is that a lot of people think that Christianity is like a culture, or that it's like a philosophy, or that it's just a social class or system. And in my experience, that is not what the Bible, that's not what the Bible actually teaches about what Christianity is. A lot of these concepts have been offshoots of what the Bible teaches and what Christianity sort of is. But ultimately, Christianity is the belief that Jesus died for your sins. Now, a lot of people will just say that and think that's a sufficient explanation for what Christianity means. But it becomes relevant because every single one of us, I think, does things sooner or later that we regret. We can look back on our lives, and if we really face ourselves with honesty, we've all done things that we find to be immoral, and we will tend to want to forgive ourselves. We will tend to want forgiveness, and this is a very reasonable thing to want. This is. But the thing is, where did morality come from? And, where did the values you hold that tell you that you've done wrong come from? And a lot of Christians, and the Bible would answer it this way too, that this concept of morality that is built into human beings cannot possibly just be the product of blind evolution, because there are many there's many acts that we consider to be immoral that we would technically be able to say would increase our odds of surviving. For example, if we went around killing anybody who had a problem with us, in theory, that would increase our odds of surviving because we ourselves would be less likely to be killed. However, we don't do that because we find it immoral. In theory, it would be more assuring of survival if we didn't consider rape to be wrong, but we still consider it to be wrong, even though it would increase our odds of survival. And similar things, there's a lot of things which we consider to be immoral. Regardless of our political persuasions, regardless of individual tastes, many of us consider these things to be immoral because they are immoral, and I believe that morality is objective and can be counted upon because I am a Christian. I believe in a God who created these things to not just be abstract ideas, but actually part of the fabric of our existence. And so when we do something that we feel is immoral, I believe that is actually our gut instinct reminding us of these moral realities that exist in the universe. And so I believe that it isn't enough to simply forgive yourself. You have to think about the responsibility you have towards God. And at this moment you might be thinking, well, no, I don't want to think about that. That's scary, that's unpleasant. But the thing is, what is an integral part of the Christian message is this idea that when given the choice between simply punishing us and giving us mercy and forgiveness, God has almost always chosen mercy. When you look through the Bible over and over again, God forgives. And God sends ways for people to be redeemed from the suffering that they cause each other and cause themselves. Over and over again throughout the Bible this happens. And also, there are sufferings we have because of our sin. And God still allows us to have access to solutions to those problems. And, one of those answers that God has given us is Jesus. He has sent this personification of himself / part of himself to be the propitiation for us, to cover over the sins we have done, so that we can still have this personal connection with God regardless of what we've done. And all of this matters because God is not just a distant, unkind person. He is somebody who knows who you are and who cares about who you are and cares about what's happening in your life, even if it doesn't look that way. And, one of the ways I believe God shows that he cares is not just in the way that so many of our needs can be met in the course of daily living. For example, if we are hungry, we can eat. If we are thirsty, we can drink. Which I understand is not unilaterally true. There are some people in the world who are hungry and thirsty. But I would argue God has provided us with the mercy to go and help those people. And it is our job to go and help those people. That is one of the things I believe to be true about Christianity, Christian morality, Christian culture. But even then, I would say your salvation is not contingent upon your ability to go and help people. Or, you upon learning that you are loved by a God, should desire to go and help others and to care about others. But that isn't what saves you. What always saves you is that God is who he is and just decided to give humanity a way out of what they've done, even though we don't deserve it. We don't deserve forgiveness. No one ever deserves forgiveness. Forgiveness is something that one being gives another for free, even though they don't deserve it, precisely because they want to be able to keep associating with this other person. They still know that this other being is still valuable regardless of what they did in the past. And they still want to redeem that relationship and to see that person become more than what they were. And I believe that God has this belief in us. I believe that God continues to forgive us and give us chances, partly because he does actually believe in us. I believe that God believes that we can better ourselves given the chance. And admittedly, when you look through the Bible, there isn't that much of a reason to think this, because over and over again, humanity continues to sin and continues to fail. But even then God still forgives. And I think that is just so much a testament to his mercy. I mean, I feel like in my own life, I learn from my mistakes, and I think a lot of people who talk about what it's like to go from being a non-Christian to a Christian will talk about this trajectory where they went from being a drug addict to a non-drug addict, or a smoker to a non-smoker, or they'll talk about how they used to sexually abuse people and then they ceased. And, Christianity does bring this transformation into people's lives. I think partly because this notion of being unconditionally loved by the same being that created the universe is incredibly powerful. It does have this ability to change people if they truly believe in it with all their hearts, if they truly believe that they are loved. And I think there are a lot of people who would say that they are Christian, who are walking around today, but don't really understand that love and don't really understand that mercy. And, if you're someone like that who is watching this video, I invite you to go and look at verses of the Bible on mercy and on forgiveness, and to look at the long history humanity has behind it of disappointing God and his standards over and over again, and yet he still doesn't give up on us. This is so important. Like I wish that I had understood this when I was younger, because it would have made such a difference to how I ultimately chose to live my life. And I think that anybody who comes to believe in this will be changed. It's just so important to know that you're cared about. And granted, you might say, well, I'm a non-Christian, and yet I still feel loved by my own respective gods. or by my family or by my friends, and I have no right to argue with that. I don't feel that I have any right to tell somebody else that what they believe in is wrong. But within myself, I believe in God. I believe in the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I believe in the God of the Bible. And, your gods may exist. But if they do, it may be the case that the God I believe in is their father or their creator. And if so, I invite you to take a moment to just consider maybe that this higher God does deserve your respect and reverence. Even if you don't believe in a God at all, I can understand your doubts. I went through many years of being somewhat skeptical and having my own doubts. But the thing that I found is that when I held out, when I looked around at the world around me and everything that I found to be true, what I found is that believing in no God at all just made no sense to me. I understand that you'll say, oh, we have evolution, we have, we have multiple universe theory, we have so on and so forth. But the thing is, even belief in those concepts does require an element of faith. Multiple universe theory, for example, is impossible to prove, and even if it were true, you would still need some origin point, for some reason for all of these things to have existed in the first place at all, especially such a complex and such an abstract concept as there being multiple universes, and even setting that aside, and I say this in another video, I don't believe there is any good reason to think that we are living in the kind of universe that we should be living in if atheism were true. If atheism were true, I don't believe we would see doable science happening around us. I don't believe math would be doable, because nothing would be stable. The universe, as Richard Dawkins describes it, is chaotic and pitiless. We are not living in a chaotic, pitiless universe. We're living in a universe where we can wake up today and the sun rises, and we can wake up tomorrow and the sun still rises. We live in a universe where the wind blows where it blows, and we don't know where it blows, but it's still blowing. There is a natural order to what is happening around us. And this is not just my opinion. The fact that science is doable hinges upon the ability to create reproducible results. I'm speaking in very simple terms in this video because I want this to be readily understood by anyone who sees this. But there are many people who are believers in science who do still also believe in a God. And I get that not everybody is denying the existence of God just from a notion of religiosity. I understand that some people just don't know how to believe in something that they haven't seen. But I'll invite you to consider that there are many important things to our existence that we've never seen, and yet they continue to be important to us. You've never seen oxygen, for example, yet it's so important to your life. You've never seen a dinosaur, but you still believe they existed. You've never actually personally gone to see the surface of any planet, yet you will believe people when they show you a photograph of it and say that it's the truth. To believe in something you haven't seen isn't really so ludicrous a notion as some people might make it sound. It's not that asinine. And, the fact that something requires a little bit of faith doesn't inherently rule it out. Because you can never see inside the mind of another person, and yet many of us in the course of daily living have to exercise at least the smallest amount of trust just for daily life to be livable to us. The mere fact that you have turned on your computer and watched this video means that you had the good faith that somebody would not immediately completely infect your entire hard drive as soon as you switched your laptop and your Wi-Fi on. That's faith. That's already a little bit of faith. And I understand that it'd be silly and unfair for me to ask you to believe in a God purely based on something like that, on so small an amount of faith that you would go on to do that. But I'm not asking you to believe just based on my word. I'm not asking you to believe just because I said to in a video. That would, again, that would be ridiculous. If, like, watching other people say don't believe in God, or, you know, believe in this God, or, you know, it's never been enough to change my mind on its own, because you need to give people reasons to believe in something. And I don't want anyone to believe just because I say so either. Like, you shouldn't want that. That's very scary if someone is not thinking for themselves. So again, I would hope that you would try to maybe keep an open mind at least. And maybe just look around and see what's out there. Maybe try asking different people why they believe in what they believe in. Or maybe, you know, try reading the Bible. Or try, you know, looking into what other Christians have to say for themselves. But, you know, ultimately, if something about Jesus touches you, if something about the idea that somebody gave up themselves for you so that you could have a kind of freedom from the natural consequences of your moral failings, if something about that touches you, please try to reach out to God within yourself. That's all I can say to you. Like, it's so personal, you know. Faith in a God is such a personal thing. I typically, if I'm honest, don't normally talk about it that much because I think it is so personal, and I think people can only believe for their own reasons. But I invite you to find your own. I invite you to. And I you know, the bad rap that the church gets and that Christians get is largely deserved, I think. There are always, in any church you'd go to, this, or at least a few people who are difficult to get along with. But they're not God. They don't decide who you are. And you're not ultimately so much responsible to those people, or, you know, you shouldn't be allowing someone else's failings to decide who you are. You know, I invite you to think about who God really is, and to look at that, because that is what it really is to be a Christian. All this other stuff is just secondary to that question of who God really is. And it's not a bad question to ask. Even in 2020, even, you know, we're soon to have 2021, you know, please still think about it. You know, I'm not planning on taking this video down, so maybe in 10 years it'll still be standing, but again, I still hope you'll think about it.